Hello! In today's video we're going to learn my favorite thing to play on the ukulele right now, the minor blues using fingerstyle and strumming. Let's go ahead and hear what it sounds like. Let me bring the camera down. It sounds something like this. Bringing the camera back up. The reason I love this so much is because it's combining 3-finger style picking with strumming to create a full solo instrumental sound. It's also leveraging the open strings of my high G ukulele here to create a campanella effect to create a lot of resonance and depth as you play. It's just a blast. I can't stop playing it, so I'm so excited to show it to you here today. Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to bring the camera down and you're going to see some tab on screen. Now if you'd like to download this tab, it's linked in this card just above on my Patreon. More about that later. Let's go ahead and dive into these first couple bars. So we're going to start here with a D minor chord. And as I mentioned earlier, we're using a lot of open strings. So normally when we play a D minor, it might look something like this, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to do these 2 fingers, the middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string and the index finger here on the 1st fret of the E string. This is a really cool kind of D minor add 4 sound. It sounds really nice with a high G ukulele like mine. It creates that nice open vibe. And so these 4 bars sound something like this when you play them through. So how do we play these? Well, we start with our finger positioning here as I described, with the middle finger on the 2nd fret of the C string, index on the 1st fret of the E string. I'm going to start by taking this middle finger off and using 3-finger picking style, which if you're not familiar with 3-finger picking style, I've got a whole course linked down below you can check out. But the gist of it is I'm going to use my thumb here on that C string. I'm going to play that open C, then I'm going to do a hammer-on with my middle finger to the 2nd fret of the C string. Following that. Hammer-ons are a little bit tricky. I'm going to super zoom in here for just a second. If you haven't done hammer-ons before, the trick is treating your fingertip like a hammer. Try to use the tip of the finger and really hammer onto the string right in where the fret wire meets the string, and that will give you a good solid sound as you're working on it. Zooming back out to the view here. After I've done that hammer-on, I'm going to then pluck the 1st fret on the E string with my index finger. Then the open G with my thumb, open A with my middle finger, open G again with my thumb, 1st fret on the E string with the index. So you can see that just starting there, it's all strings are being played. That's that campanella effect, letting strings kind of ring into each other. And then for the last 2 notes of that measure 1, I'm going to play open on the C and then 2 on the C, taking that middle finger off and placing it back on. And that's kind of the opening riff, and that's the first thing to practice. It's a good time to pause the video and just get comfortable playing that, getting it in your ear. It's got that swing feel. A little bit of syncopation by accents on offbeats. It can be a little challenging, but really listen as you're practicing. So now as we go into the 2nd measure here, we're going to do a little bit of strumming. The tab is showing that little V symbol as an up strum and the little 3/4 square as a down. So what we're going to do is, holding this new D minor that we talked about, we're going to go up, down, up, down. So that pattern is up, down, up, down. And if it helps you, it really helped me when I was learning this stuff, is with those 2 up strums in a row, think of a miss going in between, right? So it's going up, miss, up, down. That might seem a little bit more confusing, but for some people it's needed to get that feel. It certainly was for me. Keep that hand moving, up, down, as you go through. And so when you combine that first part of what we learned and the second part of the strumming, you'll realize, hey, we just repeat this. And that takes us all the way through measure 4 until the very end of it, which you see it just says 0 on the G. Just use your thumb and pluck that. More on that in just a second, but this riff is essentially repeated for measures 1 and 2. Now, one thing that I like to do with this is I like to finger pick more over the sound hole and strum more where the fretboard meets the body. So I do, in fact, kind of move my hand up for the strumming, move it back for the picking. And when I do the last motion of one, I'm kind of moving towards the direction of the next. Meaning, when I play that last 2 on the C before the strumming, I pluck it and kind of bring my hand up so that I'm ready to go with my up, down, up, up. And then on this last down, I play the down, but then I move my hand back to get that ready to go. Pretty cool, right? So now as we go on to the next 4 measures, you're going to notice it's something new followed by something familiar. So it sounds something like this, measures 5, 6, 7, and 8. So how we play this is we're going to start with our G minor chord. Now, just like we changed our D minor chord quite a bit, we're changing our G minor. All that we do is take our D minor that we're already playing, right? Middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the C, index here on the 1st fret of the E. We're just going to be adding this ring finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, and that's it. And we're going to play this riff by using that with a hammer on. So we're going to start by plucking the 1 on the E string here with our index finger on our playing hand. And then we're going to practice doing a hammer on to the 3 on the E string. Then we're going to play open on the G with a thumb, and then the 3 again on the E string. You'll notice those are the same notes. And this is just giving you, again, some of that campanella effect of multiple strings ringing together. Another important note is these are triplets right here. So it's a little bit faster than anything we've played so far. So just practice getting a little more speed with that as you're going through. And then after you've done those first few notes, we're going to play open on the A, and then open on the G, followed by a down strum on this chord. So my index finger is just staying here on the 1st fret of the E string. That ring finger is getting added. Now I have 0, 2, 3, 0, and I just do a down strum. Pretty straightforward. And when I go on measure 6, it's the same riff, just a little bit of a difference is after we've done the little riff, it goes up, down with the strumming instead of just the down strum. And at the end of that up, down, it goes back to the open C to set up that little D minor motif that we've been playing to this point. Now, before we go to that measure 7 and 8, measures 5 and 6 look something like this. And now we're into measure 7, into 8. And measures 7 and 8 are exactly the same as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, except for the very last note. Just like measures 2 and 4 actually had a different last note, measure 8 does as well. And it's pretty straightforward. Instead of doing a down strum and then plucking some sort of note, we're just going to do an up strum after it. So pretty straightforward. So that measure 8 is just up, down, up, down, up. And the whole thing, measures 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, sounds something like this. Now, as we go into the next 4, this is the final part of this little 12-bar minor blues. And this is something I haven't really talked about yet. This is a 12-bar minor blues form, and I love it. It sounds so cool. And the reason why I like this so much is because of the B-flat 7 chord that we're about to play here. So let's go ahead and try this chord. Bar across the 1st fret on the G, C, E, and A strings. And then add the middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string. This is a tricky chord. If you haven't done bar chords, make sure you hug right up next to the fret wire. But this B-flat 7 chord is really what makes this blues sound crunchy. This is actually the same changes as Equinox by John Coltrane. And so definitely check out that tune if you haven't heard it before, because you'll hear a lot of inspiration drawn from it. But this B-flat 7, we're going to do some finger picking with. We're going to play our A, G, E, and C strings in a triplet. And I like to use 3 finger picking, so that's my middle finger on the A, thumb on the G, index on the E, and thumb on the C. And then I'm going to pluck the E string again before I do an up and down strum. So that little bar, how cool does that sound, right? What makes the B flat 7 so special isn't just the B flat 7, but it's the tension that's created, that's sort of resolved, but further tension created by the A7. And all that I do here is I slide this down. I'm just moving my middle finger down to the first fret of the C string, and I take my index finger off completely. So I'm 0, 1, 0, 0, and I'm going to play the exact same thing to start. A string, G string, E string, C string, followed by the E string again, and then an up and a down strum. And that creates this really, really cool sound. If we listen, this is what measures 9 and 10 sound like together. Isn't that cool? And when you hear the whole 4-bar phrase, you hear how it creates this nice little turnaround. Isn't that a sweet sound, right? And so when we're working on that measure 9 and 10, it's just getting comfortable holding the chord shapes and working on this little picking pattern with the triplets. As we go into 11, we do the little riff again that we've done so many times, but there is a little bit of a change here. You'll see at the end of measure 11, instead of playing open on the C and 2 on the C, like we've done every other time, this time we're going to play 2 on the C and then play 1 on the C. And then follow that up with measure 12, where we're going to do that same little up, down pattern that we played like on measure 2 and 4, but now over this A7 chord, just this index finger here on the first fret of the C string. Up, down, up, down. And then the very, very last thing that's played here is open on the C, because it's a repeat, and you're supposed to go back to the beginning of the song to create that, to start the riff all over again, right? So here's what measures 9, 10, 11, 12 sound like. I think it's the hardest of the tunes, so be patient with the picking. You'll get it as you practice. It should sound something like this. And then it goes back into it. And this is what is so much fun about this, is you can loop this. It's a 12-bar blues minor form. You could also have a friend play along with you, have them play a D minor, G minor, and the B flat 7, A7, before going back into the D minor and A7. And you can even just kind of sit and play these chords along with it. And it's so much fun just because they sound so nice despite being so simple. I actually did a little bit longer version of this track. I called it All Hallows Blues. There's a link that you can check out right there where you can actually play along with it, just strumming the chords as I pick through it and add all sorts of different things to these minor blues. But it's such a cool, fun sound to jam with. And when you're done jamming with it, that's where we go on to the ending. And I wrote out a little ending here. It's a fun little 6-bar ending. It looks something like this. You can see it all the way through. It's not a lot of new stuff here. We're going to start by playing this measure 13 the same as we did 9. And then 14 the same we did as 10. And then 15 is going to be just 4 down strums on the B flat 7 chord before 1 down strum on the A7 chord. And then ending with the riff. And then that nice little pop at the end. And so this is what the whole ending sequence sounds like. Then we'll break down how to play it. So the way we do this is, well, again, it starts with a B flat 7 chord, and that, again, can be a tricky chord. Make sure you hug that fret wire with the bar. And it actually helps to turn your finger a little bit away and hug closer. I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, but you see I'm turning my fingernail away from the ukulele body and then bringing it forward. Sometimes that can help get a better angle. But after we've done that, same way we did on measure 9, we go to the A7. Same way we did on measure 10. And then we go on to this measure 15 where we hit the B flat 7 chord 4 times. Now, you can just do 4 down strums like that, but what I like to do is something like this. That nice little muted sound. And the way I get that is I do a down strum with my playing hand here. And then after I've let it ring for a moment, I take my ring and pinky fingers and I just touch the ukulele while also taking my index and middle fingers pressure off. Just kind of touching the strings, not compressing, not pushing too lightly, just touching them. And so that creates that nice little percussive pop, very jazzy in the style. After I've done that 4 times, I play the A7 and just let it ring out for a while before finally playing the riff from the beginning one more time. And after I've done that riff one more time, I'm going to mute the strings by just laying my fingers across. And I'm going to do a little down strum on that. You could also, if you know how to chunk, you could also do a chunk there. That's another exercise that's a good one to work on here. But I like to just mute it before taking my index, barring it across the 5th fret, playing through, and sliding the finger off as I do that. You'll notice the G string doesn't have anything written on it, so I'm trying to mostly strum my C, E, and A. If you hit the G, it's no big deal. It's totally fine. But it's more those other ones I'm hitting and immediately sliding down. So that whole ending sequence sounds something like this. Isn't that cool? Bringing the camera back up. As I mentioned at the start of the video, this is my favorite thing to play right now. I get to do a lot of really cool lessons here. You can check them all out in the description with the playlist, all that stuff. And this is one that I just can't put down. In fact, I ended up writing a fuller version of the song. I mentioned that early in the tutorial. You can check it out and play along with it. Call it All Hallows Blues to get in kind of that spooky time for Halloween. But the minor blues is just such a fun and engaging thing to play on the ukulele. I've been working on it with a lot of my private students too, of all skill levels, more beginner players who are just trying to play these simple versions of the chords with their first bar chords, all the way to the most advanced players where we're working on writing your own parts within this form. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this is a 12-bar blues form with the minor, and it's a really cool thing to play around with. Linked in below, I've got the tab, and in that tab I also have a little bit of a description of some of the theory that's taking place here. So if you're wondering what the difference between this minor blues is compared to like a standard 12-bar blues, be sure to check that out because it breaks down some of that information. You can also download the tab there. All of this is available on my Patreon page, where every month we do a vote based on suggestions of the patrons for what that month's song tutorial is going to be, and Original Blues won this month. So I hope you've enjoyed this. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll see you next time for the next lesson here on YouTube. Give this channel a subscribe, a like, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.